All right, everybody, Stocks by the Numbers, welcome back. I know I'm coming to you a little bit later here Tuesday night, but I wanted to do just a quick technical update here on STEM Inc., ticker symbol STEM, listed here on the New York Stock Exchange. Stock closed $2.91, down 22 cents, took a 7% hit today. And what I wanted to show you here is the trend line that I drew out last time when I spoke about it. And you can see here, I'm going from the absolute bottom of this candle here on Friday, January 19th, 2024, and February 5th. 2024, and you can see that I drew across that, and I was pointing out the last time that we looked at it that the stock was making higher lows and slightly higher highs here, and it looked like we were in like this upward stepping channel going into these earnings. Again, earnings coming out next Wednesday, so I'll probably try to do an update again before earnings, but I just wanted to point out this specific trend line and this bear flag that is potentially lining up here. As you see, we had the big drop, and then we have the little consolidating little flag here, and it bounced right off of this trend line here that I drew out from the bottom of November 28th, 2023, and I believe I connected it here to the bottom January 18th, 2024, like right around there, and it ended up cutting through, like right through the body of that candle. Actually, that's where I drew it. It was right there at the body of that candle, and you can see, kind of hard to see, but you can see how it shot up and it had that tight little, that's where I drew it. And you can see there's a lot of action there where it's bouncing under and off of this trend line here, even stopping right there. And you can see also today the action that took place bouncing off of this trend line. So obviously it appears to be a key level here in the technicals, but more importantly, this right here, this trend line making these higher lows, this is the one that we have to keep an eye on, because I feel like now with this potential bear flag setting up, what we're going to see is we're going to see a break and then potentially a slight bounce off of this trend line here, 278, and then we could see a pullback here to this trend line, which, as you see, maybe about 276. And the low here on this candle was 269. So what we want to see, it's going to be cutting it close, but what we want to continue to see is the bounce off of this trend line and the continuation of making these higher lows. Now, if it breaks this trend line, of course, we could potentially set up a double bottom with one of these previous bottoms and then bounce off and start running into earnings. Because, again, people might want to immediately beat the company up if they come in light here. Revenue estimates a little over $250,000 now, right? But we've been watching this stock for a while, and we can see that the company has a market cap of $453 million. The EPS has been swinging around, had a big drop last quarter, but overall we can look at the revenue growth here, growing very, very nicely over the years, tens of millions into hundreds of millions. And now I want to show you also $67 million here for Q1, $92 million for Q2. So we add those up, that's like $160 million, and then another 133. So now we're at 293, and then we have 256 coming in. So that's 550 million about. And if you look, you can see for the previous year they did 362 million. So the rate at which this company is growing its business is absolutely phenomenal. And this is why, in my opinion, I like to keep looking at it and just see what can happen moving forward. Again, the billion-plus backlog this company has, and currently has a market cap of less than $500 million. Just one of the reasons as to why in my opinion, I personally like this stock. But again, I wanted to just bring up this chart real quick just to show you how it was bouncing off of this trend line, how we potentially have a bear flag setting up, and we could break and ride along this trend line here, and potentially come back to this support level that we've been bouncing off of since about the middle of January, right? So this is like a month-long little channel that we've been in, and we have to see if we break and go even lower, or if we bounce and go back up. And again, earnings, those are big numbers. Those are big numbers. But even coming back here again, we can see that initially everyone beat the stock up, right? Because you see red, you see a miss, you think it's negative. But again, looking at where the company came from, even though they missed on the revenue side by 46 million, the jump up in revenue quarter over quarter was just beautiful. So everyone's expecting bigger and better things, several quarters, several years down the road, and now is the building up process. But because they saw the jump in revenue, as you can see, this was throughout November, December, the markets were in the sell-off, right? They really beat it up from the high threes all the way down to the low twos, and then what happened? It started rallying like an animal, getting all the way up here to 430 a share, right? And even stayed up there and regained that level like a week or two later, and then slowly began to pull back. And again, you can see even going back from here in the longer term, we're making these higher lows moving along, right? So in my opinion, it still looks good. And again, even this 256, even if they come in light, they post like 180, 200 million, still the quarter before they jumped up from, 60 to 70 million, whatever it was, up to 130 million. So now if they're jumping up to 180, 190 million, even if they're coming in short, again, you may initially have a little sell-off, but then chances are a lot of longer term investors are going to see the revenue growth and the actual growth of the business as a whole, and that's when they're going to step in and they're going to play long ball with it. But let's switch over here to stock charts very quickly. I'll let you go. We can see on the daily, the RSI kind of middle of the road there, a little over 40. That's why I'm saying we could now break on that bear flag and we can drop down and approach that 30 benchmark. We can see the stock has been rejecting off of the 50-day moving average here a couple of times over about the last 4 or 5 weeks. So might stay down and flat here moving forward into earnings. But that's why I'm hoping, again, this is that trend line coming across the bottoms. I'm just hoping for you guys that it doesn't break through that trend line. And if we do, this is this trend line. And again, if we do, we may go down into the 260s, the 250s potentially, going right around earnings. But I have a feeling that it's going to gain some momentum. Some buying is going to come in going into earnings because it's such a big jump up in revenue estimates that everyone's going to be kind of amped about it. But we can see here on the daily, the MACD kind of turned towards the downside. So that's why if we have another big down day, the MACD could cross to the downside, and that can add to bring it down for the next, 1, 2, 3 sessions. But we'll see how that plays out. Switching over here to the weekly, we can see the RSI sitting slightly below 40. Again, kind of middle of the road for quite some time. So it doesn't really tell us where it could go. As you see overall, though, the stock was coming down. And again, for good reason, because again, going back here from these levels, back at that time, with what little the company was bringing in revenue, I can appreciate the fact that a lot of analysts and investors out there just felt it was overvalued in the numbers. It's going to go down over time and sell off. I'll be able to short it up here, buy it back at a lower price, and then we can consider trying to find the bottom, waiting for that revenue to start chunking in, and then we can step in and go long on some shares. So I understand if a lot of people played it that way. And that's what I say about a lot of these overvalued tech stocks and a lot of these newer stocks as well that came onto the street. From day one, a lot of them are overvalued, and people just think they're going to go up just because it's a publicly traded company. Unfortunately, that's not really how it works. But we can see the MACD flattening here, potentially crossing to the downside. Again, we had a big red candle, and that's why I don't know if we'll cross on the daily and the weekly on the MACD and really start to accelerate into the mid to low twos, but chances are it's looking like it's probably going to be down again tomorrow, unless, of course, because it bounced off of this trend line so well, it might immediately try to reclaim the moving average before dropping back down and retesting the trend line. So obviously we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but I just wanted to do a little update here showing you guys just a couple of levels, a couple of trend lines that I'm watching, and basically just to keep that in the front of your mind there, that this time next week, next Wednesday, STEM Inc. will be reporting earnings, and we're looking for a big jump up in revenue. And I'm going to end it there. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. Thanks for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, they're very uncertain. I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.